Welcome to Explore, Explain, Highlights. In this Highlights package, we'll be looking at Season 5, Episode 7, our special panel episode, where we are discussing the State of Data Viz, Part 1.
And that is, what are your standout data viz organizations? So just type that in. You have three potential options. You see some here. You'll see that you cannot include a space, so just put it all together as one word. Andy Kirk is the correct answer, in case you were wondering. But other answers are also nice to have too. Cool. Okay, they're coming. Yes, data visualization. Reuters. Visual Cinnamon. Yes. Kirk. Someone just said Kirk. Okay, yeah.
Very good.
FT. Reuters. Information is beautiful. Yes. Reuters. Okay, Reuters is winning. Datawrapper, DataLabs India, The Economist. I'm loving that. But Reuters seems to be the winner here. That's interesting.
Very good.
Okay. More information is beautiful now. DVS, Data Viz Society.
Nice little shout out for Applied Works there.
Yes, Applied Works.
Thank you.
You are relevant, in case you're wondering, yes. Awesome, loving that. New York Times is also very strong. The D3JS. I'm loving the spectrum here. Our world in data. Observable. Brilliant. Okay. On to the next question now. Thank you everyone for participating here. It's the last question for this part of the conversation. In what capacity do you interact with data viz? Are you a business intelligence person, data journalism, you're just a consumer, you're a freelancer, you are a data viz position in an organization, or you just don't and you're here just for fun on a Wednesday morning? If so, I respect you very, very much.
Quite simple, I think, for everyone here listening and especially people in the room. But for them, it was like a revolution just because they no longer need to go to Excel, but you just open a site and can filter out and have all of the information. So I think the fact that people are kind of getting used to it, or at least have an idea that it could exist, is the trend that I see. I think we still need to kind of tell them, because the first time they called us, they said, oh, we need a Power BI dashboard, and I said, no, we don't. So we made something else. So the pedagogy side of it is still needs to be there, but I think the trend is like bigger and better. So what can we do with data viz to make life, more fun, more interesting for everyone?
And I think that's really interesting, because it seems to me that it's also reflective of a slightly more maturing marketplace out there in terms of knowing what to ask for, what to look for, who to look for, what to even type into Google as a search term. Because I don't think we still have a very obvious presence as a profession for people out there. If you're looking for an architect, you type in an architect. Likewise with a graphic designer. But I think there's a certain disconnect in the language of how people find us. And also, as you expressed there, Evelina, almost like the imagination that exists amongst those clients to know, oh, you can do something more than a spreadsheet. Wow, okay, tell us. So as that grows, hopefully there's more opportunities.
I feel like 10 years ago, when the talk was given, we were still on that phase of data viz teams being formed. Everybody, like everything is exciting and new, and we try out amazing stuff and see what's possible with the technology. And then, the restrictions hit, like mobile first, because more than 50% of the people are reading the news on mobile. And you have like something like dark mode, you have new accessibility concerns, and all that leads to people trying to figure out like the basics and how to make simple charts that actually meet all these requirements that are given from the organizations or from the newsrooms. And so that's what I'm seeing now. I'm seeing a lot of extremely well done simple charts, like bar charts, etc., line charts, the simple stuff. And I see more of that than ever before. But I see less and less bigger projects. And I think, yeah, that's a little bit of a pity, I think. But I also see, more and more data viz teams actually are working on amazing stuff, like not just the US anymore. It's not just the New York Times anymore. It's not just the Washington Post. It's lots of European newsrooms. It's starting more and more to get to the Asian newsrooms too, which is exciting. So that's great. But I also see on the other side that the standards just shifted, and like the data viz literacy also. So people learned how to read a Sankey diagram. Like you see more of that. It's not a wow, this is new, I have no idea what's going on here. When you see a Voronoi tree map or like a Sankey or like even a scatter plot.
Yeah.
I feel like this is used more and more, but it doesn't have this wow effect anymore. And the same is true with storytelling. Like you don't hit a storytelling anymore, and then you're like, wow, this is super exciting. You're like, oh, okay, I've seen that dozens of times by now. So maybe it's also that. Maybe it's also the big projects are still big, but they're not super exciting anymore because people have seen it so much.
And I think this is something we've touched on already in that survey. So when I got into the Data Viz around 2007, there might have been about 20 people maybe in the field, I don't know. But it didn't feel to me unlikely that by now in the future, we'd have lots of people with Data Viz person as their job title. I'm not sure that's necessarily the case, but it's also the case that thankfully, I guess for people like myself doing training courses, there's a lot of people out there who are expected to have data viz skills alongside their job, their duties, their roles. But what do we think is the current state of the sort of professionalization of data viz as a career, as a way to make a living? Let me come to Rasagy, because you've got again lots of different experiences and roles that help you make a living. So, as a educator, as somebody doing the job for an organization, as an employee, but then also the side things you do, what's your kind of current thinking about the prospects? And I'm thinking especially just about, some of the students you work with, how are you hopeful for them to be able to forge a career in data viz?
Yeah, that's super interesting because like flashback to 15 years back when I did a master's in information design, I thought I'll get super specialized into this and this is the role that I look for. And even today, I don't see information design roles show up or like a database designer role show up in the industry, like at least in the Indian ecosystem that I can talk about. What I do notice is a lot of value given to an understanding of database in other roles. So I definitely see the information design or graphic design world where they're doing a lot of print report related stuff, where understanding how to represent data is becoming more and more valuable. And now we have newer studios showing up in India, like Gurman's Revisual Lab, where they are really working on this hardcore data visualization kind of stuff, even though some of them may not call themselves information designer. I'm just sort of very specific on that field, right? But I also see the bigger space of product design or UX design, whatever new term comes in, where they are building a lot of UI UX stuff, but understanding of data, so being like a data literate designer, and then ability to actually understand when to use what in your product design is becoming more powerful. So even though we have a bunch of people studying information design who say I'm teaching as students, barely any of them end up taking up a specialized information designer role. Most of them are taking up a product design role where they end up doing dashboard work or new product work where there is a lot of dynamic data that is being done. So I definitely sense more scope just in terms of magnitude or number of roles in that world compared to the graphic design world. I do see a lot of interest in Indian sort of spaces, and also a lot of studios in India work for clients all around the world for continuing to do like graphic design and information design, interactive sort of pieces as well. I am also slightly more hopeful to see more data journalism show up in India. India has had very few newsrooms that have adopted this practice well, and I think the same bit about data literacy. Like vast part of India still may not understand anything beyond a few simple charts, and so data literacy is still poor enough for people to go do storytelling or novel
Yeah.
visualizations there. But I've seen like some interesting examples of images, like the podcast that you've done with Gurman had images as the element that was being visualized, right? And just using a tree sort of map, but putting a lot of images, it is easier to understand. So I still think there is potential for designers who understand data viz to go into more public advocacy spaces, but they'll have to break away from more complex or even the traditional chart types to something more interesting.
Making data viz a data literary, so you're making data viz accessible to a broad audience. And I think to do that, you need a breadth of skills. And we have a real breadth of skills in-house, from people who can run workshops to doing strategy to inclusive user-centered design. I think prototyping is a really important part of that process, is actually testing things on people to make sure that it makes sense. We've actually only ever hired one person who's had formal training in data visualization in nearly 20 years. Marco Bernardi joined us 3.5 years ago from Accurat. So he worked under Giorgio Lupi,
yes.
and was trained at Politecnico di Milano.
Yeah.
And he's brought a huge amount of data knowledge and data visualization knowledge to us that's, I think, broadened our output. Because in the past, a lot of the data analysis stuff has happened client side, and it's been our job to kind of understand often really complex bits of research. And the researchers are visualizing stuff in Python or Excel even, and to them it makes sense. To us, it's kind of, how do you interpret something that complex and convey it to a broader audience, make it more accessible? And I think that's to do with having a breadth of different skill sets in-house. So yeah, that's my perspective.
Thank you for joining us for this Explore Explain highlights episode. As always, the full episode is available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. We hope to see you again soon on another episode of Explore Explain.